Hello guys, welcome to day 11 of the online Excel training. Today we'll be talking about Excel data validation and lists. Okay, let me create a new sheet so we can do that. So basically, normally for Excel you can always input any kind of data you need in it. So here I can input something like name, then here put one, and then here put numbers. You can put anything, but then sometimes when you're working on Excel, you need to restrict the kind of things your users will be able to input into a particular cell, and that's why you need Excel validation. It helps you to basically restrict the kind of input that your users will be able to put in a particular cell. For example, let's imagine I have this cell to say input A, just a basic examples, and I call this one input B. Okay, basically, then I call this product. Normally this product is a function of year, then I can say times year, right? That's the mathematical meaning of product. So if I say 1 year and I say 2, basically it works because 1 times 2 is 2. I can put 4 here and then it tells me 4. But now, what if I do not restrict this? Then a user comes and basically enters A here. I get an error because of the invalid input. Now I can avoid this kind of error in Excel by ensuring that users can only input numbers here, and that's where Excel validation comes into play. So for us to do those kind of restrictions, all you have to do is so I select the cells I want to work on. Let's select these 2 cells. Then under here, under your tabs, you come to data tab. Okay, then you come to data validation. Just click on data validation. It gives you a drop down. Click on the data validation again. Now by default, what Excel allows for every cell is any value. That's why we could input anything there. But then if we want to restrict it, we can say, okay, let's restrict it to all number, and then you can set the range of the number to say, okay, minimum of the number, let's say the number should not be less than 1, and it should not be more than 50. So basically, let's try this. Now with this, because A has been there already, it still maintains it, but now let's change it to 1. Can you see it works perfectly? But if I change it to a 1.5, you can see this error immediately. So it tells me that the value you entered is not valid immediately. And then it doesn't allow you to enter that value. If I try the same thing, it tells me the same error again, and if you keep retrying, it keeps giving you that same error because it's now an invalid entry. I've restricted it that you can only input all numbers there. Even if I try to put 1.5, it's still restricted, even though the calculation could handle it, because I've restricted it to all number. That entry will not be permitted basically, and same thing happens to column B, or yeah, it happens to this particular cell because I applied the restriction to both. So if I try to put an A, I get the same error also. So these are the kind of things you can do with Excel validation, and you have a lot of options. Okay, so let me go back there. So right here, you can see the list of things you can do. You can ensure that the any value, like I said, is the default. Then you can ensure that it's only all numbers are allowed. You can ensure that it allows decimal. Okay, you can ensure it's list. I'm going to talk about this list very soon, in a couple of minutes. You can ensure it's only dates format that is allowed in the cell. You can ensure it's only time, and you can restrict the strength, the text length. Okay, so you can say that, okay, if the length should not be more than 10, basically. Okay, so if I do this, I can input text and it allows it. But then what if my text is more than 10 characters? Just random numbers. It gives me the error. So I'm able to restrict the number of characters the user is able to enter here in that cell. And you can see that kind of flexibility on how you can handle your Excel sheets, how you can restrict data input and things like that. And then this error, if you notice, the error it's actually reporting. It's generic. It's just telling me that the value you entered is not valid. But then we should be able to be more specific, to tell the user the kind of input that is expected from them. So let's customize this some more. Basically, what I will do is, let me just delete this. and then go back to my validation, data validation. I change it back to whole number. Okay, let's just use whole number. And then here, right here under this error alert, I can customize it. So for example, it's also possible for me to say, okay, give the user a warning that this thing is not allowed, but take it all the same. Then that way I can change it to, like a warning. So it gives the user a warning, and then you can still take it. So basically, stop means that do not even allow that entry. Immediately user puts that wrong entry, throw an error and delete it off. Warning means, okay, give the user an error message, but at the same time just allow the user to go all the same way. Then information means just pass an information, there is no warning about it. Okay, but we're still on stop. Now I can put a title to say input type. Then I can say kindly enter a whole number. Okay, so if I say okay here, basically what it means is if a user now mistakenly presses an invalid entry, you see what happens. So it gives you the type. I say input type, then it customizes the error message. So okay, kindly enter a whole number. That means only whole numbers are allowed here. Can you see? So you can actually see that you can customize the kind of error message. So it's not just that generic error message. The user is able to understand what kind of input is expected from him or her, and that's one of the things you can do. Also, we do not have to wait till the user makes an error, okay, before we actually correct the user. What if immediately you put your cursor here? Why can't it just tell us that this is the kind of thing it allows here? So basically, let's do that. I come here, then here under input message, I can also say the same thing. I don't want to use input type again so it doesn't look confusing. Let's say input alert. Okay, this cell only allow all numbers. Basically, can you see what happens immediately? So if I immediately, because I've actually put that input message here, okay, that information here, that cell message here, immediately your cursor is on that cell, it already prompts the user that this cell only allows whole number. So you don't have to wait till the user makes an error or a mistake before he gets to know what's right for him or her to enter into this cell. And that's the kind of flexibility you can have with Excel. You can inform your users with the kind of inputs they are allowed to use, and then you can also stop the input using an error or correct the input, like just give them a warning and let the input still pass. Let's try something like that. Here if I put something like B now, an invalid input, it gives me an error, and when I click cancel it, it returns it. But then if I change it to a warning, let me show you that. Here it's a warning. Okay, I'm not changing the input and error message, the title and error message here. So if I put B here now, look at what happens. It tells me, okay, kindly enter a whole number, but it gives me that option to continue because it's just a warning. So if I say yes, say okay, since that's what you're insisting on, it allows you pass. So you can always give that kind of option. Sometimes you just want to correct the user, but at the same time you still want their entry to pass. So you can use one in cases like that. But in case it has to do with a formula that would affect your final output, then you have to use a stop to stop that kind of entry at all. Like when like the product formula we have here. So for this kind of product formula, if I want to put it in a production environment, I need to ensure that it's an error that is here. Okay, a stop that is there, not a warning. Okay, so you are not able to disrupt the formula if you do not put the right input. So that's one thing about data validation. But there are also other things you can do with data validation. I'm going to speak exclusively to lists now. Sometimes in Excel you actually need to how do I explain? Okay, so a lot of times, this example we've considered in Excel, you're allowed to put numbers, right? But sometimes what you need is not numbers, it's actually a particular set of restricted inputs. So, for example, if I want to create a gender field now, okay, if I want to create a gender field, I know there are only two okay, no, let me not go into complex there, but let's assume we are only using two genders, male and female, right? So any other input the user decides to enter should throw an error. But male and female, now what Excel allows me to do is I can predefine a set of value that people are restricted to for a particular cell, and I can use list for that kind of a thing. So it's like your drop down thing. If you are trying to fill a form online, remember what it tells you when it tells you to do gender. Once you see it, you just get a drop down, and then the drop down allows you to pick the items that are allowed in that particular field. We can do something like that also for Excel. Let me delete these columns. Okay, so I've deleted the columns. Now I'll just create something here. Let's create gender here. Okay, sometimes it's right to put this on another sheet where it's not open to everybody, but let's just do it here so we don't have to, since we are just using it to test and I'm using it to demonstrate how the list work. So genders, the two genders that we are permitting are just male and female genders, right? Now here, let's say I now need users to actually enter their gender here. Okay, so when you want to enter the agenda, I don't want the user to just mistakenly spell male like something like this, and then I want to restrict to say, okay, instead of you typing, because I want it to be uniform data, I actually want you to pick it from a drop down. So you can do that also with list under the data validation. You have to just click on data validation, same data validation. Then here what you do is you allow lists. Immediately you click list, what happens is it gives you like a source field. Then click on the source field and highlight the options, the cells that contains the options you need. Highlight those cells and then click OK. Immediately you do that, you notice that there is a drop down sign, a drop down object right beside the cell. So when I drop down, I can see it now. Can you see? I can see male, I can see female. Do you understand? Now imagine a user comes and says, okay, let me type, and he says mistakenly makes a mistake or something, or makes a mistake. Excel restricts it and say, okay, this particular entry is not allowed. This particular entry is restricted to some group of described or predefined values here. Okay, now the user does not need to know where your predefined values are described. This can be on any sheet, but all the user needs to know is you cannot enter this here. You are restricted to using the drop down. Okay, then you can now decide to change it to 1 minute, to say, okay, warn the user and still let the person type either the wrong thing or however you want to handle it. So that's at your own discretion, but you see how it works. So you can create lists. Now I can increase my lists to say, okay, let me make room for people that do not want to disclose their gender. All I have to do is I can just cut this as part of the cell. Okay, as part of the list, I cut this down. Then here I can type I don't wish to, don't wish to disclose. Okay, now I have this I don't wish to disclose. If I come back here and I use the drop down, can you see the option is now here? So you can now pick the option I don't wish to disclose as part of the gender, or you can pick male or female, however you want to have it. I hope you understand how lists work and how data validation work. Now this is actually one of the very important concepts you would need when you are working on when you are building your own dashboards or trying to restrict user input. You would really need this particular entry. Now, one thing I would like you to work on, if you take your time to practice on this and to work on this. Now, sometimes you have what we call dependent drop downs. Dependent drop down in the sense that if I pick this to be male, okay, then I probably would have another drop down